So recently, with my lack of free time, I've needed some more casual games due to my workload and family life taking centre stage and occupying most of my time. I still get a chance to play a quick match of PUBG from time to time, but rarely. I prefer playing duos anyway, but I can never get too comfy because I'm always busy. And so, I was looking for a few games to play to occupy what little time I have to enjoy gaming, on most occasions. Sometimes I do have time to play proper games. And I was on Reddit scrolling through, and someone asked the question in r slash video games, I think it was, or r slash PCMR, I'm not 100% sure, it was a while ago. But I think the question was, what time filler games do you play when you have a spare 15 minutes and don't want to play anything too heavy? So I was scrolling through the comments, and somebody suggested a title here and there, and I discovered a love for a whole new genre of games. Well, new to me, anyway. The genre of games that I'm on about are roguelike games. These are the games that come in all shapes and sizes and are some of the most entertaining games I've actually played in a very long time. Now, roguelikes aren't for everybody. They aren't that graphically impressive and won't stress out systems too much, but there is still a lot of content. But they aren't huge open world games or third person action adventure games with stealth elements. Sorry, Sony Chads who won't touch a game that isn't an exclusive title. Yeah, have fun playing Death Stranding. Oh, wait. So, I wanted to share with you a few of my favourite titles in my Steam library that meet this genre. So first up on this list is a game that's definitely going to get me a slap on the wrist from Copper, but Void Bastards. The comically named Void Bastards is a cel-shaded FPS that borrows elements from other titles such as Faster Than Light, PapaScho, and Borderlands, creating a dark, almost lonely atmosphere. You are one of many randomized characters and it is your job to secure upgrades to your ship. Published by Humble Bundle in May of this year and developed by Blue Manchu, Void Bastards is full of quintessential British humour. And yes, I am using that word right before anyone tries to call me out on it. But you play as a prisoner who has been selected from stasis to further the crew's progress through the nebula. You are fleeing from void whales and pirates, scavenging for any resources to help you survive your treacherous journey. When your character dies, the AI companion, voiced by Kevin Brighting, most famous for his role as the narrator in the Stanley Parable and his voice work as a scientist in Black Mesa, he also had a role in Doctor Who in an episode in 2014. You will awaken a randomly generated prisoner with their own traits and flaws, such as being a smoker, where your character may cough randomly throughout the level, alerting enemies to your location, or they could be deaf, in which case listening out for enemies is impossible and you have to watch out for the onomatopoeia of footsteps and alerts. Void Bastards features a 12 to 15 hour campaign that can be completed with as many prisoners as you need, each being unique with their traits and flaws. However, just because one dies, it will not reset your progress with regards to crafting. Once you craft an object, it will transfer over, making it a reasonably forgiving experience for a roguelike title. Number 2 on the list is a game called Kingsway. It's a fantasy quest type RPG developed by Adult Swim. Its gameplay consists of the loop of slaying monsters, finishing quests, and leveling up your character and equipment. Your character is going to face some trouble on the way, the usual assortment of zombies, ghouls, skeletons, giant snakes, and other fantasy creatures lie in wait to kill your character, and permadeath is a very real threat. Your character must pick a class, like in many RPG-based games, where you would choose to be the agile warrior, the sneaky thief, the trusty mage, or the all-rounded adventurer. Once you've created your character, which shouldn't take too long, the game keeps the creation brief for a reason, you are transported to your island, where you must traverse the dangers and adventure onto the castle. Which, yeah, sounds like typical stuff for an RPG. But it's not the plot that's so intriguing about Kingsway, oh no. It is the style of the game's interface and layout. The game takes place in a virtual desktop, resembling something from Windows 95, and your inventory, character stat screens, and inventory are all icons or folders on the desktop screen. Your enemies pop up in little windows reminiscent of pop-up ads or old-school viruses, and you have to battle it out as the screen bounces from one side to the other, making it very tense when the window starts shaking while you're trying to hit the block button because you're low on health, and there are 6 pop-up windows going off all at once and you're trying to block all of their attacks. This game makes micromanagement fun. It's a pick-up-and-play experience, something that can be enjoyed casually or by the die-hard retries that are gluttons for punishment. There are multiple endings too, making replayability a welcome possibility. Number 3 on this list, Immortal Redneck. This one I've put a lot of hours into. I was lucky enough to get this game a few months back through Humble Monthly, and I've loved every minute of it. But the premise to this one is just so fucking bizarre. Like, imagine if Stephen Summers was tasked with coming up with a game plot and went through Nashville whilst hopped up on heroin. That may be a little bit over the top for an analogy. Many of you probably don't even know who Stephen Summers is. He's the guy that directed the original Mummy films, the ones with Brendan Fraser. Seriously though, this game has you playing as the titular redneck or any one of the Egyptian gods after you unlock them, battling through ancient Egyptian pyramids to defeat the ancient evil that lies within. You go up against mummies, boars, lizards, demons, and more as you battle using an assortment of firearms to dispatch your enemies. When they overwhelm you, it's back to the courtyard where you upgrade your character to try again, and get further than last time. Featuring over 50 weapons, you'll never get tired of blasting mummies in the face. That, and there are over 100 perks in the self-described roguelike game. So this game features a star-studded cast of gods from the titular Redneck to the likes of Seth, the god of storms, Apis, the god of strength, Amit, devourer of the dead, Hathor, goddess of mining, Amunet, the hidden one, Forth, the god of knowledge, Sekhmet, goddess of healing, and Neith, goddess of hunting. I've probably butchered so many of those names. On to number 4 on the list, Enter the Gungeon. Now, Enter the Gungeon describes itself as a bullet hell roguelike game, developed by Dodge Roll and published by Devolver Digital. The plot is that in an old castle known as the Gungeon, there is a gun that can kill the past. You are one of 4 adventurers who want to do just that. This is a truly manic shooter, and your enemies are literal bullets armed with guns. There are numerous enemy types, from shotgun shells with shotguns, 9mm bullets armed with any assortment of firearms from pistols to AKs, and grenades which will suicide charge you. There's lots of weapons for you to find in the game, and there's loads of things to shoot too, making it a fun little time waster. I haven't even beat the first boss. It's a tough game to beat, but I enjoy the challenge. It's stupid comparing any of the hard games to Dark Souls, but if roguelikes had a Dark Souls, this would be it. Dodge rolling and sidestepping hails of bullets while you search for the weapon to change the world is a really fun experience. I haven't really played enough to know thoroughly what I'm doing, but it's a really good game. On now to the game that I was on about, that I found on Reddit. Nuclear Throne is a top-down shooter roguelike game developed by Vlambeer. The game feels very arcadey in the sense of, oh, you died, insert more coins to continue, or restart, because personally, when I play, I get through about 3 to 4 stages before dying, but the premise is simple. You take control of a selection of post-apocalyptic mutants that are unlocked by reaching various stages with certain characters, encouraging massive replayability. Your goal is to take the nuclear throne, to rule over the wasteland, but you aren't doing that with your words, you're letting your bullets do the talking. Every unlockable character is essentially a different class, with varying weapons to start with and varying power-ups. Its graphics are very simple, but what makes the game work so well? Roguelike experiences tend to have lesser-end graphics, as it can boost performance or even the world it's trying to sell. A simpler art design is never a bad thing, coupled with big explosions, bullet and laser sound effects, and the squelchiness of dead foes. It comes off as kinda cute. Now, Nuclear Throne isn't just a typical run-and-shoot-everything type game. There isn't much ammo in Nuclear Throne, so you sort of have to make every shot count. This tends to be what stops me dead in my tracks when I come up against a difficult enemy, such as the scorpions that populate the outside levels. With this game, once you die, it's right back to World 1.1 for a new adventure, so it is a punishing but addictive game trying to beat your best. Its roguelike gameplay features can make the game seem unfair at points, but it's par for the course with many roguelike games. You can get all the upgrades in one run and then none the next. My one gripe with this game though is that there's no widescreen support, which is bizarre for a game in 2019. Number 6 on this list, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. The Binding of Isaac has been around on PC for a very long time, initially releasing in 2011, with an updated version titled The Binding of Isaac Rebirth releasing in 2014. I'll call this game Isaac for now, as it's easier than saying TBOI, but Isaac is another twin-stick shooter style experience, which is also a bit of a dungeon crawler, technically a basement crawler, but we'll get to that later, where the titular character Isaac is fleeing from his crazy mother who, believing she heard the voice of God Almighty above, is trying to murder her son and turn him into a lamb shank dinner. The game relies heavily on religious backstory, so down in the basement there's an assortment of creatures waiting to kill Isaac, from bugs, flies and spiders, to mutated siblings long forgotten. There's a lot of messed up stuff in this one. Isaac fights off the fetuses and other creatures with his tears. Each run in the game is a procedurally generated dungeon basement, where if you die, it's back to the beginning of a new dungeon. The game leaves a lot secret. There's at least 16 endings and 8 characters to unlock. It apparently has 4 bonus levels hidden in there somewhere, and there's hundreds of items to unlock and find. Also in Rebirth there's a lot more characters to unlock. Now, Rebirth is a sort of remake, sort of sequel to the original, but I'd say it's just a remake. The original game was made in Flash, and that created a lot of bugs, but Rebirth was made with its own engine, opting for a more SNES or classic game console look. Of course, the new engine means that it has a much more playable frame rate, making the game much more reliable, and a bit of a bullet hell experience, as the bullet effects, the bloody teardrops, don't cause the game as much to lag with Rebirth. Hell, Rebirth also features a co-op mode, so you can twin stick away with a buddy. Isaac lets you quit midway through a run and pick it up later, making it a great time filler. Just be warned if you have a nervous disposition that the game features a lot of poop for some reason. And a few dead baby jokes here and there. As the premise of the story is the sad tale of child abuse from the child's perspective. Rebirth is the best version, and both versions are very cheap. There's also DLC for it, titled Afterbirth, which just adds more items and enemies for you to beat. It's really fun. It has had overwhelmingly positive reviews, and is one of the first roguelike games I've ever played on Steam. There are so many upgrades in this game that I have to use a community guide just to know what I'm picking up and what it does, but at times that's just me. You can totally enjoy the game without having to do that. That's just what I do personally, because I like to know what it is I'm picking up and how it affects my characters so I can continue on my quest. Number 7 on this list is Faster Than Light. Have you ever wanted to take control of your own starship and travel across the cosmos, micromanaging crew members? Faster Than Light may just be that bumper crack you need. Developed by Subset Games, this 2D Firefly-inspired game has it all. Bandits, marauders, aliens, distant planets that have been long abandoned, and a rebel armada that you are fleeing. There are many hard choices to make that the game will present you with, whether that be deciding to engage a faraway vessel not knowing truly its weapons capabilities, or sending your crew in to investigate a distress beacon on a faraway planet. The fact this game presents you with these choices as a text adventure style option means you have time to think and mull it over. You don't have to decide there and then on the spot. There are so many random encounters that can be triggered in your playthrough just because of decisions that you make, and often bad luck will lead to severe setbacks for your crew, such as running out of fuel in hyperspace, leaving your ship coasting through the cosmos, sending out a distress beacon for help. Will you be lucky and get some actual good Samaritans, or will you attract raiders? That, or when you go onto a surface to go and help a colony out, chances are you will lose a crew member. Now, that's just 7 games, but there are a few more in the roguelike category. My honourable mentions go to Risk of Rain 2, Streets of Rogue, Death Road to Canada, Pixel Piracy, Tower of Guns, and Rogue Legacy, but there are many more. Now, there's a very specific checklist of what makes a roguelike game. Yeah, sorry, but this is the boring history part of the video that all the casuals will click off of. The term roguelike was coined to describe a game that followed a design structure from an old 1980s video game using an ASCII display, where individual characters form an alphabet, if you will, are used to represent different individual elements from the game, such as the player, enemies, doors, walls, ladders, decorations, etc. However, I have not played the original Rogue, and alas I am unable to comment on it any more than that. I do however know of elements such as procedurally generated environments, permanent death, and the randomization of item identities, or at least according to the Berlin interpretation, which is a very strict and snarky set of expectations that a roguelike game has to follow. Basically, the people that created this fucking insane checklist strike me as the type of people that would rub it in your face that they read the books or the comics when you watch The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones. You know, them pricks. They go, it's not how it was in the books. Whine, whine, whine. Gaming evolves over generations, and with it, so should the rules for what genres of games are classed as. A man by the name of Darren Gray had written an article about the Berlin interpretation, accusing it of being grossly inaccurate, outdated, and unrepresentative of a vibrant and open genre. He makes a statement criticising the fact that features such as the ASCII display or the fact it must take place in a dungeon, as did its predecessor titled Rogue, so people tend to use with roguelike elements to describe modern roguelike games. So try out a few of these titles, you may love them. In the meantime, feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. I read every comment that this channel receives and every message I get on Discord. Thank you for watching. So yeah, thank you. Every like, subscribe and comment helps me grow, and it genuinely helps the channel out tons. YouTube as of late has had a lot of policies and rules put in place that make it much harder for smaller channels to grow. So thank you for all your support. It means the world.